Nice. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the AAA podcast. This is episode 2. Today, we're going to be talking about sleep, some recovery, and some supplements. So, we'll just get right into it. Maybe talk about our relationship with sleep. We both have very different sleep patterns and abilities to sleep. So, if you want to kind of start with your relationship over the last 4 years.
Let's start with how did you sleep last night?
Oh, that's a good question. I slept okay. I definitely didn't get as much sleep as I should have. That's a pretty common trend with, I think, a lot of college athletes.
Yeah.
But I think I more or less slept pretty well.
Nice.
No wake events that I know of.
Yeah, I definitely had a wake event. I woke up at 1:40, and I don't know, I was just warm. Yeah, I was just warm and stood up, and then instantly when I woke up, I just felt wide awake, awake but not.
Yeah.
Mentally awake, but I still knew my body was tired, so I ate a piece of chocolate and went to the bathroom and chugged water because I've been getting really thirsty in the middle of the night, and then tried to YouTube myself to sleep and didn't sleep and get back to sleep until 2:40.
Yeah, and I think with you, that's a pretty common trend. You wake up and you stay awake, and that's just, I think, part of you being a light sleeper.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, I'm a very deep sleeper. I think my alarm went off for 35 minutes this morning straight before I woke up to it, and even then I turned it off and went back to sleep before needing to rush to weights at 9 a.m.
Must be nice. But, yeah, last 4 years, I'd say, have changed tremendously over the last 2 years. The first 2 years, it was the typical college, go to sleep past midnight, wake up for weights at 6 a.m., just drowsy all day. I think I have more sleep problems now just in general, but I could hypothesize why. I think just when you're more tired, you'll probably stay asleep. And now it's I try to stretch it for 8 hours plus, and when I try to do that, it's I stay awake a little more longer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think freshman, sophomore year, I was definitely more tired during the day. I'd fall asleep during class. I drink bangs all the time. But now the last 2 years, it's sleep is my number one priority. Because I feel it sets the tone for everything else, how I study, how I eat throughout the day, how I work out, how I lift, how I play baseball. It's just if sleep isn't there, everything else is gone, and you can't really make up for it in a sense. Yeah, you can eat and you can work out, but at the end of the day, sleep is the ultimate recovery. It's the opposite of stress to me. When you think of recovery, I just think of sleep right away.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think my journey through sleep the last 4 years is maybe opposite. My first 2 years being in the dorms had absolutely nothing to do basically all day most of the days. So I could get away with having a bad night's sleep because I would just nap. I know there were several times you'd come back and I would have gotten out of class maybe noon, and before practice I was just asleep in my bed. But now I live a bit of a busier life, can't really nap in the middle of the day. And then I oftentimes kind of sit in my room at night and just kind of stress about going to sleep early because I know I can get more done if I just stay up longer. And so now it's just this constant fight of I'm ready to go to bed at 8, 9, but I'm I should stay up and do stuff because I don't want to waste my evening. But for all you out there, it's not a waste to go to bed early. Please go to bed and get sleep.
Yeah. I think it's a mental thing, but also physiological. We think of our body and you have your circadian rhythm and things that might disrupt it. So now blue light glasses are really popular because of their ability to help with blocking blue light, which can help ease you into sleep mode, or even overhead lights, kind of give your brain and cells the circadian rhythm. Your cells have that we're still awake, we still have to move. So it's even if you're ready to go to sleep, there could be things in your environment that are triggering your body to make it think that we're not ready.
Yeah.
if you are.
I think the circadian rhythm is a really important piece. I think I had a really good schedule last year. I took sleep a lot more seriously last year. I would have a regimen of kind of when I went to sleep, and I had to be up early for 6 a.m. weights. So I think that's one of the reasons why I just took it more seriously. I think the rhythm is everything. It's like when you have a schedule, your body gets like ready to go to sleep at certain times, and it falls into that like that cycle of, all right, now we're waking up, and you barely even need an alarm when you're waking up early. To where now it's very varied. I think on my Whoop, my bedtime varies by like 2 hours, and my wake time also varies by like hour and a half. And so my body can never really like get into a rhythm. And so it changes every day when I'm tired and how recovered I feel when I wake up. And that's something that I definitely need to work to fix. But I think a lot of people might be able to relate with is each night doesn't feel really consistent with sleep. And I think that might be due to just inconsistent schedule of when they're going to sleep.
Yeah, like when you think about sleep in general, like sleep quantity is obviously important, like 8 hours. But also like sleep quality is just as important. And within sleep quality, you have that like the difference of times you go to sleep and wake up. Like that's why like ordering Whoop bands, like that stuff is taken into consideration of how long you're disrupting that sleep pattern. And then going back to like physiological processes, like for example, when you think about hormones, like insulin like growth factor, if you vary, there's research that shows that if you vary that time to sleep more than an hour, so like 7 p.m. and you're not going to bed till 9 p.m. the next day, if you vary that more than an hour, it shows that there's disruption of growth hormone and insulin like growth factor spurts throughout the night. And if you don't know what those are, it's just those are very important hormones that help with recovery, especially for athletes, that help like build your muscles, build your tendons, like a whole bunch of bodily functions. But we don't really think of stuff like that. And it's funny because like you always get the question as like someone in the health profession of what supplements do I need to take to get better? And it's like when we think of like the pyramid, like sleep is like what underlies everything, and supplements is like somewhere up here of importance. But everyone wants to go after the supplements, you know, like don't even get me started on steroids. Like, oh, like what steroids should I take? It's like
sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're probably going to benefit more from just getting better sleep. And there's studies out there that show that if you get 8 hours of sleep compared to 6 hours of sleep, you have a 66% less chance of getting an injury. Like little stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, just as a whole, you kind of touched on it earlier, but like sleep is your body's repair time for both your brain and the rest of your body. And so it's really important that you get the full time needed of sleep, and so your body can make those repairs. Something I heard recently that I actually found was really interesting is that, and I think a lot of people get stressed out where they have one bad night of sleep and they wake up the next day and they're like, oh, well, I had a bad night of sleep, so it doesn't really matter what I do today. And then they start compounding it. Your body is really good at adjusting for like a one-time bad night. And it actually is good at adjusting up to 3 days of bad sleep. And then after you have that like third night of inconsistent poor sleep, all those hormones, the growth factor, testosterone, it just drops. And it's like this cliff that gets hit, and your body now like can't rebuild from that, and it develops a lot of sleep debt, which is something we'll talk more about later. And it's really hard to dig yourself out of that hole at that point. And so I think understanding that like one night of bad sleep isn't the end all be all. Like there's things you can do throughout your day to kind of decrease that debt that you've accumulated. And then also just getting a really good night's sleep the night after can completely reset that bad night of sleep.
Yeah, it's like not only are you maybe increasing the sleep debt, but now you're having modalities throughout your day that are affecting the sleep even more. So it's like you have a shitty night of sleep, you drink caffeine past 2 o'clock, and then now it's like you can't go to sleep because you had too much caffeine, and then you have shitty sleep, you need caffeine, and then shitty sleep, and it just compounds over and over again. And like caffeine's half-life is 12 hours. So like when you're trying to go to sleep, like you still have like those chemicals going in your body, you know?
Another thing, eating before bed. I know we've kind of discussed this recently more. I think it's a 3-hour window that the studies say you should eat.
2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. And once again, it's like, this is kind of getting nitpicky into sleep. I'd rather people, eat when they can and eat a good meal and then just like try to get the 8 hours rather than stressing about everything. But if you're in the department of like you're already getting 8 hours of sleep and you're trying to improve the quality of that sleep, yeah, the time you're eating before bed can really affect your sleep just through sympathetic and parasympathetic activities. If your body has to digest a bunch of food and the glycemic index of your dinner is really high, so it's really digesting that food and creating a lot of energy, you're going to have a hard time going to sleep and staying asleep and get to those later stages of sleep.
Yeah, I mean, like, you think of what your body's doing when you're sleeping. It's basically it's in sleep mode. Like, it needs to be calmed down and not have anything it's trying to work to repair or like in a big level, or be stimulated. So when you're sleeping and you have food in your stomach and all of a sudden you have all this blood flow to your stomach trying to get to the muscles and organs to break down that food, it's like now you're increasing heart rate, and then you decrease the HRV by doing that, and now you have muscles that are working that should be having its sleep or rest time when really you're just stimulating it more. And as you may know, like Whoop Band's Aura rings, one of the things, two of the top things they measure is resting heart rate and heart rate variability. Those two things are very important, and you're disrupting both those factors if you eat within 2 to 3 hours if you go to sleep. Now, obviously, there's like a trade-off, right? If you haven't eaten all day, like, please go eat. You know what I mean? I've had people where they're like, oh, but it's 2 hours before I go to sleep, I can't eat. It's like, no, you got to eat, Maybe stay up an hour and just like go for a walk, like speed up the process of which digestion happens. And, there's adjustments you can make.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention there, like, by not eating, your sympathetic nervous system starts to fire up, and your body needs to start like mobilizing energy from other places. So you're probably gonna have a harder time falling asleep from not eating for 8-12 hours before bed than rather eating like a meal before you go to bed. Like, that's a much better option.
Yeah, even just like at that point, just understanding a baseline of nutrition. If you have more fats, then it's going to take longer to digest. If you have some quick carbohydrates, it'll be faster. But yeah, just like if you go out and have fries and a greasy burger, like, it's going to take a while to digest with your milkshake.
You gotta
probably make you feel really, really full. So
yeah. Backing it up a little bit, I think we discussed, like, I might be someone who's very lucky with how I sleep, very deep. I don't really wake up to noise or anything throughout the night. I've lived with you for 4 years. You are the opposite.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of your advice can be really useful for people. You've tried a lot of modalities over the years of how to increase sleep. And you've also had some very hard schedules to get sleep. What are like maybe the 3-4 biggest modalities that you've experimented with and you liked that really like helped you feel like you were getting good sleep?
Probably most important one, this is like important to me and just in general, the circadian rhythm one. Like, again, going back to physiology, like, you can be ready for sleep, but your body can't be ready. So what's really important, and I got this from Dr. Huberman from Stanford or Harvard. I always get confused. I think it's Harvard, but he's a professor of ophthalmology and biology there. So he basically, ophthalmology, I believe, is the study of the eyes. So turning off overhead lights like an hour before sleep, and like using blue light glasses, right? Because now you're kind of telling your body it's time for sleep. And also viewing the sunset. So like viewing the sunset can help auto-regulate that mechanism in your body, like, hey, it's time to sleep because the sun is going down. And also, just as important, looking at the sunrise in the morning, which is a little harder with my schedule because I wake up at 5:30, so it's like I don't always get to see the sunrise. But he talks about how you can stimulate that with just like really bright overhead lights to kind of get your body used to it. But overhead lights are like not nearly the same as viewing the sunrise, and that viewing the sunrise kind of tells your body it's awake time and kind of helps with that like 24-hour clock. Another modality is just like cold bedroom. I know it's like insanely important. I know some people like sleeping warm, but like sometimes you got to do things that you don't like. And like, it's just about having the atmosphere of the bedroom cold. It doesn't necessarily mean like you need to be freezing. Like, you can still use covers, But having a cold bedroom, I think, is really important. Also, just like you need to lower the core body temperature in order for you to go to sleep. And one of the reasons why people wake up, or like why I woke up last night, was because I was warm. So when your body is warm, and it's usually warmest from like the time of like, it depends on the person, but like noon to 4, that's when your body's most alert and most warm. So those two go together. And then when your body is usually in colder areas, like it's usually when your body lowers core body temperature, then that's when it's time to sleep. So that's another important one. Don't want to get into supplements yet because I think it's important to have things that aren't supplements. Those are the two big ones, blue light glasses. I could go on and on.
Yeah, I know you like have like blackout shades in your room now.
Oh yeah,
and
blackout
you use-
shades.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Making sure you have a dark bedroom. I mean, it just goes to the circadian rhythm idea again. And like, the less you have to look at and focus on, the more you can be able to sleep. I mean, I'm assuming there's studies out there that show that like, the darker the bedroom, the better sleep there is.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've tried the sleep mask things. Those worked a little bit, but then like lately I've been just watching videos to go to sleep. So it's like I can't like have them on and have them off at the same time. I think the biggest thing that affected me most was just having an air conditioner. Like I literally can't sleep if it's warm. I have to be freezing. But then answering the question of like schedule, yeah, just like making sure I can get close to 7 to 8 hours. Like even 7 hours is good enough for me. Again, you spend an hour awake in the middle. I don't know if people know this, but like when you are sleeping for 8 hours, say you go to sleep at 12 and wake up at 8. Like you're actually asleep for 7 hours. You average being awake for 1 hour, like given research, even if you don't remember waking up. So like even if you plan to sleep out 8 hours, try to be in bed for 9 hours so that you can actually get 8 hours of sleep. So that was like what I tried to do. So it's really hard, but if I have to be up at 5:30, it's like I try to be in bed by 8. And like, again, it's a lot easier when you're on the schedule, but then like the weekend comes and it's like, I'm not going to sleep at 8. It's like I'm going to sleep from 12 or 10 to 12. So it's like, it kind of throws off my week, but I'm willing to sacrifice that.
And I think that goes into what we were talking about earlier, where it's like 1 or 2 nights, like your body can compensate for that. Like it's really good at adjusting, but it's important like on the nights where you really can get good sleep to focus on getting good sleep. So you can have that missed day where your body, you know, can recover nicely and it doesn't throw your whole week off. Yeah. I think those modalities, I think I agree with them. I was listening to a video where people were talking about like overnight shifts for work and like the 3 main things to help those people sleep during the day and still get like good sleep. And yeah, that was pretty much what they hit on. Like make sure your environment's dark and then make sure like you're telling your body like it's dark before you go to sleep. So even if you're working overnight and you've got to fall asleep in the morning, like on your drive back from work, maybe like wear sunglasses, you know, or some blue light glasses to like kind of trick your body into thinking it's dark. And I think naps are important if you can take them. This is like a whole nother thing I could talk about, but I think we live in kind of a world where people think of naps and it's like, oh, you take a nap if you're lazy. Or it's like, man, a 20-minute nap in the middle of the day can like completely reset your body. And like, just, I think people who do nap regularly can attest to it. Like your energy spikes and you feel great when you wake up. And so I think it's transitioning that thought process from, oh, I'm being lazy by napping to like, I need to nap and so I can be productive with the rest of my day.
Yeah, I think the research has been like tremendous on the effects of napping. Like they're like really, really good. Like anything from 30 minutes to an hour. I know anything more than an hour is like, it can almost inhibit your sleep because then you start to get into those the deep sleep instead of like the REM sleep. Those could be a game changer, especially if I know a lot of athletes take midday naps, and those are, you know, you have your morning weights and then you have class, and it's like right before practice, getting that nap can be really crucial for just like resetting yourself for the day.
Yeah, it's important to realize like we're not only talking about like alertness, we're talking about like cognition, we're talking about reaction time, like. By getting good sleep and having your body not bogged down, like everything improves. And from an athletic standpoint, a work production standpoint, like that, this is the area where you can get the most like bang for your buck.
Yeah, I mean, There was a time last year where for the in-season sports, I remember specifically with basketball and maybe swimming. I literally wrote on the whiteboard like the effects of getting 6 hours of sleep compared to 8. There's research on it. But the most important ones are reaction times, the kinetic sequence, so like your ability to sequence your body to elicit a movement in a chain of movements. So think about like something as simply as shooting a basketball to sprinting. Coordination decreases. I'm blanking on some other ones. I know just like overall speed decreases.
Yeah.
Just like anything that relies on output. So like you think of sports and that's all it is. Like all the things I named, like perception, reaction, coordination, kinetic sequencing, like throwing a baseball, throwing a football, catching like all that stuff requires all of that. And through that research, it showed that like if you have 6 hours of sleep, you have the same cognitive ability as a drunk person. Which like some people are like, no, it doesn't. It's like, yeah, it does. It's just like you've never been able to understand that, or you never heard it. Like I like the Dr. Hacker code. Just because it's new to you doesn't mean it's new. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that stuff's important, especially in season, because at the end of the day, if in season athletes, if you are less fatigued than your opponent, then you'll probably win out.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the goal in season, is to like get rid of fatigue as fast as you can, because there's going to be fatigue from like, school, not sleeping, not eating enough, not hydrating enough, going to weights, work, social stress. Like all those things are factors that are going to have fatigue, and the body perceives stress as stress. It doesn't perceive it perceives the roller coaster the same amount of stress as your girlfriend breaking up with you, as you doing shitty on a test, as you swinging and missing. Like your body perceives it all the same. There's no like mechanism as which your body knows if it's good stress or bad stress.
Yeah, it all just comes it up. Not to get up, I think we could talk about stress more. I just want to kind of bounce back to that kinetic sequencing, and relating that back to what you said earlier. It's like the reduction of injury. Like the kinetic sequencing is like, that's the key to that. If you look at like ACL tear research, they're finding that it's like less about the musculature and the strength surrounding the ACL, and it's more about like the mind-muscle connection. Yeah. And when you have a delay in like the ability to react to what's happening, like that's when someone tears their ACL. They're seeing like concussions will increase, each concussion will increase your chance of tearing your ACL, or there's several other injuries that fall into this category, but I think ACL is like the big one. And so like just that kinetic sequencing, like that's where it falls into play. It's like your reduction of injury, like your body is just moving more efficiently, and you're reducing the risk of like making a mistake that could cost you, time or a game or, your career.
Yeah, I think it's like it affects a lot of sports that require a lot of like perception and reaction. Like I think of like shooting a basketball, and like I sometimes like backwind and think about it, like I'm literally shooting a ball from my hand to a hoop in the air. Like that requires so much like cognitive focus, and if you lose out on that, like that's the difference between you being good today and not being good today. It's not always about how you feel physically, it's also mentally. Like you said, like sleep is a mental and physical thing. But going back to like the kinetic sequence thing, like when we're going through human movements, there's that tension and relaxation, the contract and relaxation. And if you're relaxing too much or contracting too much, again, that could just cause an injury, or even just like shooting a soccer ball. Like you need to require some type of contraction of the quad, and then also like relaxation of the hamstring. Or when you're trying to like cross someone up in basketball, like again, like if you're relaxed too much, like you need that hamstring to like hold that tibia in place.
Yeah.
Like we don't often, like I feel like people may think of kinetic sequence as like these big crazy movements like hitting a baseball or throwing, but it's really like any type of human movement that you really do.
And we're talking about fractions of a second here.
Right.
I mean, it happens like that, and like you can't really control it. It's all the subconscious. It's all just like how fast are those, neural stimuluses being relayed back and forth.
Yeah.
It's like you want that to be as fast as possible
Right.
for any performance metric.
Right.
I guess let's bounce now back forward to stress. I mean, I think we live in a world where maybe we have the most stress. Being a student athlete is a pretty stressful endeavor. You have relationships to worry about, you have school to worry about, you have your performance to worry about, you have other deadlines. I think, how do you recommend balancing that as an athlete, and what should your priorities be in that world?
At the end of the day, you and I and other health professionals can have their opinions about stuff, but at the end of the day, make what you do research based, and there's a lot of research on a lot of things, especially the things we're talking about. So I know just having a good social circle is something that's really good. Being able to journal, there's research on gratitude journals, sleep, hydration, eating, those are all things that can help with a stress response. Going on walks, I know works for a lot of people. Listening to music, but yeah, I think there's a lot of different modalities. It also depends on what works for you. There's a lot of things that people recommended that work for me, and then I've also gone to health professionals who are absolute idiots about should we go there?
I think we should go there.
I think we should go there. All right, so I think it was my sophomore year, because we were still living with each other. Yeah, my sophomore year. I was having pretty bad sleep problems, really bad, and also it was leading to those really, I don't know if you remember the headaches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd wake up with insanely bad headaches, and I'm not allergic, or I don't have any major health problems. I don't have any health problems, thank God. But I'd wake up, and I think it was just from stress maybe, but I don't ever get them anymore. But I would wake up with insanely bad headaches. One morning it was so bad I couldn't read my phone. I was trying to read an email and I couldn't read English. It was really, really bad. And I went to the bathroom because I just drank some water, I have a headache, drink water. Everyone tells you. I just throw up water. I'm just why am I throwing up? I didn't have anything bad to eat. I didn't know what was going on. It was really bad. I couldn't go to weights. And it happened a couple of times. I just get really bad headaches. Anyways, decided to go see a sleep doctor. And I took my time researching and finding what I thought to be a good sleep doctor. So walk into the office, okay, cool. I'm looking around the office. I'm there it is, Harvard, School of Medicine. I'm oh, this dude's legit. I got a good sleep. We're gonna get this shit figured out. And he had all of his diplomas. I didn't really read much into it, but I walk in, I tell him what I have, and then he asked me some questions. I don't know if they're significant or not, but one of them was were you wild as a kid? And I was yeah. Asked my mom. I was wild as a kid. So he didn't really diagnose me. We kind of did with what's called a restless leg syndrome, which is basically you just move in your sleep, you're not ever comfortable in one position. You always have to be moving to find a comfortable position, which kind of how I still am. And so I was we got done with the talk, and he was I was so basically what should I do now? And he's just don't stress. I was oh, thanks, dude. I told him I was meditating. I told him I tried what's the app called? It reads you, it walks you through the meditation, but it's called something specific.
There's a lot of apps,
Anyways,
take
it's one of those, one that comes up on your phone when you're scrolling through Instagram. That one. Mindfulness, that's what it is. Mindfulness meditation. I was telling him all these things I was doing, and he's just don't stress. As if that was gonna magically let me just tell myself don't stress and it'll work. He said, tell yourself before you go to sleep, don't stress. It's okay if you don't get enough sleep. I thought this dude was gonna prescribe me something, and he prescribed me with self-talk, even though I've already been doing things for anxiety and whatnot. And then the second thing he said, which this still bothers me to this day, that he said this. He said, try not to eat too many carbs before you go to sleep. And I was okay, that makes sense. And I was so don't eat them right before sleep, or what do I eat for dinner? He's try not to eat carbs for dinner. I was oh my God. I was sitting there, And I was like, what the hell? And then the next thing I said, I just kind of went along with it like you do with people who are smarter than you, or what I thought to be smarter than me. And I'm like, well, what if like I'm an athlete? I need carbs. Like, let's not even go into why you need carbs, but like if you're an athlete, you need carbs. I was like, I need carbs. Like I'm an athlete. Like I work out. Like I need energy. And he's like, yeah, carbs are not really like as important as people say they are. I was like, holy crap. I was like, please get me out of here. And so he proceeded to like print off. I wish I still had him because I'd bring him in. It was like 20 sheets of like the most, like if you were to go on your computer and look up like top 10 protein foods, like he literally like hit print on like probably the first 3 sponsored sites. And so like he gave it to me, and all of a sudden I see like, I don't know, like Men's Health, and it's like pages of like, dude, I know it has protein. Like I didn't even ask him for this. He's like bringing out things. He's like, yeah, just make sure you eat high protein. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this dude did not just do. Like I went in for, I don't even know how much the appointment is, and came out with 20 pages of high protein foods as if like I didn't know that or something. So that's my experience with a sleep doctor, and it was pretty shitty. I don't even remember what we were talking about before this. But like it's just like, I don't know. I'm not gonna like go there with doctors. I'm not, nothing against doctors, but it's just like there's some of them out there where it's like, how did this happen? You know, this is like basic physiology.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's you're gonna laugh like this one. I think it's just about not being a schmuck. I think sleep is like a very delicate like situation, and I think you can like run around searching for like that one key fits the lock answer. But it's like a lot more than that, and it's complex in like its different complexities now. And like a very small scale, like it's very complex. But if you like zoom out, it's like there's a lot of things you can do to improve your sleep. And so I think if like there's someone out there like struggling, it's just like you don't necessarily need to go to like professional and this kind of sounds like him, but like start stressing about like you not getting good sleep. Like I would just start like trying different modalities. Like I don't want to like take a bunch of credit for it, but I do remember like saying, hey, you should try like watching YouTube before bed, because that's something that I had been doing for years and I really liked it. And it's and I've since gone off of that. I now listen to music before bed, and it just puts me right to sleep. I just love like having that background noise that my head can focus on. But yeah, just trying different like small modalities. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do to like tell your body like it's time to get ready to sleep. And I think that can go a long way. I don't think you really need to change your whole entire routine around and change your whole life around like I need to get 8 hours of sleep tonight. But maybe just like trying one thing at a time, and just like really ask yourself after a week of trying it, like, do I feel more alert? Do I feel more recovered? And if the answer is yes, even if it's just like 3-5% more, like just stick to that and keep doing it. And I think over time you'll find little tricks that work for you. But I think sleep stress is a real thing. And I think the minute you start going down that rabbit hole of I need to improve my sleep by 50%, 80%, I need to be getting 8 hours of like really good restorative sleep, like that's when you start to get in this like trend of like you're keeping yourself up at that point. And I think it's like just look at the numbers that studies prescribe as like a baseline, something to shoot for. And if you miss it, like you're fine. Like that's based on the whole population of the world, and there's a lot of genetics that go into like actually what you need. And so that's just a guideline. And as long as you're trying to work towards that guideline, you're doing the right thing. But if you never hit that guideline, like I still think you're going to be okay.
There's a ton of modalities. I've tried a lot of things. I have an air filter, air conditioner. I tried taping my mouth shut. It's actually kind of underrated. Like, I liked it. Okay. I liked it, but I think I'm still working on it. Like, I don't try it every night. I just got to work my way up to, like, not getting a nightmare of me dying and someone taking my mouth shut. So just working my way up to, like, getting better at feeling comfortable with it. But nasal strips, chamomile tea, lavender spray, magnesium glycinate, magnesium biglycinate, L-theanine, CBD. What else? Oh, I have a mattress topper
Mm.
that costs more than $1,000 that cools my bed. Um,
I will say, if anybody ever gets the privilege of walking into Anthony's room, you just want to like lay down anywhere and just go to sleep. Like
oh yeah,
it's nice.
yeah, it's pretty cool. You can like adjust the temperature anywhere from 50 to 100 degrees. Um, yeah, it's really cool. Uh, I've always wanted to try the 8 sleep ones because like those go off of like your actual heart rate and HRV at the moment, which is really cool. So like if it senses your heart rate start to go up or something like that, then it'll like cool you down more because again like cooling the body temperature helps with sleep. But I've tried, let's see, allergy nasal spray. That's the newest one. Because I listened to this one doctor talk about how like uh, your breathing can influence like your resting state. So like if your body senses you not being able to like inhale enough air, then it'll kind of wake you up, right? Because you're going into like maybe an alarm mode, and it's like waking you up to get more air in and make you more cognitively aware of what's going on. Whereas like he like talked about nasal spray and a nasal strip to help like open up your nose so that it helps with like the breathing and respiratory rate that could help with sleep that a lot of people may lack. Um, yeah. Oh, blackout shades.
Yeah.
So if anyone has questions about that stuff, like I'm the guy. I've tried it all. I've tried it all.
You mentioned at the very beginning of all that list some of the supplements you take. Do you want to start transitioning into that kind of aspect?
Sure. Yeah. I'll say like.
I was going to say, even before we get into this, this is something that's really big for me, and we talked about it a little bit. It is called a supplement because you are meant to add it on to a good practice.
Yeah.
It's not a substitution.
Right.
So if you're not already getting good sleep or good enough sleep, if you're not trying modalities to get better sleep, then I wouldn't even like start going down that rabbit hole of supplements. Like I would focus on that bottom of the pyramid, which is sleep. Once again, supplements exist somewhere up here at the top, and they can help you improve by, small percentages if you're like looking to, egg out more performance, but it shouldn't be used when you're getting 5 hours of sleep every night and you're just like, oh, I want to make it seem like I'm getting 8 hours, because that's not how it works.
It doesn't work like that. Yeah, it's a supplement to what you're doing. Again, like on the hierarchy, supplements are up here. Like again, like I've had so many people ask me like, what supplements do I take? And especially like at Driveline when we had like 15, 16-year-olds in high school, it's like nothing. Like sleep more and eat more and drink more water, because like those will have a way bigger return on investment than like supplements. And that's something that like what's important with a lot of the things is like, especially with food, like try to eat more protein instead of like taking protein powder. Try to like get these like nutrients and micronutrients that are bioavailable, that you're able to eat.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Let's see. Not a doctor, so please don't like take what I say to supplement yourself, or I have very limited knowledge on this stuff. This is just what I've researched myself. But the ones I take are magnesium glycinate or biglycinate, glycine, and L-theanine right now. So those are all helping basically. They somewhat help with hormones, especially L-theanine, but magnesium glycinate basically just helps with the central nervous system, which controls all human movement, even like your brain's processing area. So it helps with like thinking and stuff. So it kind of is like a suppressant, you would say. So it kind of calms it down, right? Because if you're ever trying to go to sleep thinking a lot, you've probably noticed you can't fall asleep because you're thinking a lot. So it kind of helps with that. It helps like calm down the thinking, calm down the nervous system, and which can also help you just like help your muscles go limp or just like relax your body. So those are also, how do you say, bioavailable.
Yeah.
You can get it in foods. But magnesium glycinate has probably been the most researched one out of all three. It is like, I think right now is trumping melatonin. And I used to take melatonin. Like melatonin seems to be a popular one. The only thing with melatonin is it does kind of mess with your hormones and like the release of melatonin from your, is it pituitary gland or pineal gland? Which one it is? I think it's pituitary gland. No?
That sounds right.
Right, we'll say pituitary gland. It helps with because melatonin is released from there. So like your body has that like clock mechanism of like it's time to sleep, starts to release it. But the thing is when you take melatonin, you kind of reset it in a way where you might feel really drowsy in the morning. So I found I took melatonin out, glycinate, magnesium biglycinate works really well. But there's been research lately to show that magnesium biglycinate helps a lot cognitively, like not only with sleep, but like, again, like turning off the brain, not dying, but just turning it off. It's shown to help with like curing major depression and depression just in general, which is really interesting in high dosage. So like usually magnesium glycinate, they recommend like 300 to 400, maybe 400 is maybe too much, like 350. We'll say 350. They usually recommend 350. Like these studies are showing 500 to 600, so almost double what they actually prescribe to you, which is very interesting. Actually, no, it's not interesting. It's interesting that they tell you to take this much when actually that much helps. And I feel like that's another talk of just like creatine and supplementation of like what's recommended versus like what will actually help you in work. But magnesium glycinate helps with REM sleep. Glycine kind of helps more with the deep sleep. And those have both been shown in research. L-theanine helps with kind of like cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone in your body. So at the end of the day, it's just getting your nervous system to calm down. Because again, like nervous system controls all of everything. So helps like release tension in your muscles since the nervous system controls muscles, stuff like that.
I've just heard this. I don't know if it's true. I want to know if you've heard anything about it. I've heard that glycine also helps you dream more.
Yeah, that's true. So I started taking glycine this year. I'd say like my dreams definitely increased a lot more. Our housemate Adrian is taking it too. You notice that he's getting more dreams, like more vivid dreams. And like if you know anything about dreaming, it's like if you're dreaming, you're probably having good sleep, you know. So again, that's that deep sleep aspect for glycine, magnesium, more with REM sleep, and they're both equally important. REM sleep and deep sleep combined are called restorative sleep in research. So yeah, I would say like if you're looking to supplement with any, I'd look into those ones. But I try to stay away from melatonin. Again, magnesium has been shown to be better.
Yeah, I have recently started taking magnesium glycinate because of Anthony. I'm not a huge supplement person myself, but it's a pretty mild one. Like you were saying, like melatonin kind of like forces you into sleep, so it can kind of like throw some stuff off. But the magnesium glycinate, it doesn't really like necessarily make you tired, but it helps you once you do fall asleep. Whether it is due to the glycinate or not, I can kind of speak to the dreaming. I'm someone who dreams a lot normally. And just last week, I chained 3 nights of lucid dreams in a row, which was awesome. I don't know if, people listening to this ever lucid dream, but being able to control yourself in your dreams is really cool. And you wake up feeling awesome. Yeah. So I've really enjoyed my time taking it so far, and I'll probably keep taking it for a while.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I have a good night of sleep, it's like I've usually dreamed throughout that night. Where was I going to go with that? I forgot. I think I don't remember where I was going to go with that. Oh, I was going to talk about even like backtracking from supplements. I think hydration is very, very important. So you talk about the most important things with sleep, body temperature, heart rate, HRV. Also, if you have an Oura or a Whoop, they have body temperature trackers, and you'll start to notice like if you start to feel sick that your body temperature will increase. I think that's really cool. So you could almost, like I remember when I had the Oura ring specifically, one time it told me like you might be getting sick, and then I was like sick for the next week, which is kind of crazy. So you kind of tell when you're getting sick, when that temperature is increasing, but also like to have good sleep. I think it's plus or minus 1 degree of temperature. You try to stay within that, or else that could also inhibit your sleep. But we're talking about heart rate and heart rate variability, right? Heart rate variability, is that funny because we were talking about variability on the last podcast? Like your physiology wants variability. It's not just like you in general. Like the more variable your heart rate, the better you can respond to stress. Were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. So drinking water, right, can help make it does make your blood more fluid. And if your blood is more fluid and can move around a lot more, then it's easier to transport to organs and systems and muscles in the body. So if you think of like a straw and you try to drink a milkshake through a straw versus water through a straw, it's very different, right? So your body prefers the water one because it's can travel through the body faster, right? So when we talk about heart rate, a good way to lower your heart rate is to make sure that you're drinking enough water, because then your body and heart has to do less work to pump that blood throughout the body, right? So if I tried to, again, push water through the straw, it'd be way easier with the water than it would be with the milkshake, just because it's more fluid. It has more fluidity, it can move through faster. So, right, if your heart has to get that blood going even more and it's like the milkshake texture, it just has to pump more and faster, right? But if it's really fluid, then it has to pump less. So, again, heart rate is a very important thing, lowering that heart rate before you go to sleep and when you're asleep to be able to be recovered. Because then you think about it, like throughout the day, your heart rate is mostly up and you're working out and you're going through stressful situations and whatnot. So like, what is the way to recover your heart? Well, it's to go to sleep, So it's not only about like, again, cognitive and physiological, but like also like you have to think of like your heart as a part of an organ too that you're affecting. And like, again, we could go there some other time, but the biggest cause for death is heart problems.
Yeah.
It's like sleeping takes care of your heart too, and having good heart rate variability takes care of your heart. But if you can lower that heart rate, more than likely there's like a correlation with lower heart rate and higher heart rate variability. And we talk about heart rate variability. It is in research the most used thing for readiness, recovery, anything on that end. A lot of, especially people who do a lot of cardio endurance things, base their recovery or their readiness off heart rate variability.
Yeah.
And that's what Whoop and Oura and all those cool sleep tracking technologies use to give you your recovery or readiness scores, heart rate and heart rate variability.
Yeah. Maybe just like a quick heart rate variability summary for those of you listening who don't really know what it is. Essentially like how well your body can respond to stimuluses going on in your sleep. So obviously when you're rebuilding and repairing during your sleep, your heart is pumping nutrients to tissues and organs that are in need of repair. And so the quicker it can increase your heart rate, pump those nutrients to the tissues, and then drop that heart rate back down, that's going to increase your heart rate variability. On the contrast, we talked about sickness earlier and your body temperature raising. You also are in need of like constant immune support when you're getting sick. So your heart rate never really has time to drop because your heart constantly needs to be pumping nutrients to organs that are helping fight off that sickness. And so then as your heart rate stays higher and the variability between your lows and your highs decreases, your heart rate variability will also decrease.
Yeah, I talk about like fight or flight, like your body is in fight mode at that point. That's why it's like it's hard to sleep when you're sick sometimes. Sometimes people like, after you having bad sleep, then you sleep well, but I'm gonna go back to this really quick. Like you think of when people get sick and it's like, what are you told to do? Like you're told to sleep, and the reason why you probably are sick can very possibly be because you didn't have enough sleep. So it's like the combination of your body was never able to, didn't have the time to fight off those diseases or sicknesses while you were getting shitty sleep, it's like, well, now it accumulated and now you have a common cold. Now you have to spend more time fighting it off. Yeah.
I'm going to have to make this an explicit podcast again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't cuss on the last one.
Yeah, that was my fault on the last one.
Maybe it's just because I love sleep. But,
no, 100% though.
It's like, the first thing you do when you get sick is you sleep, and it could very possibly be because you just never had good sleep before.
Yeah. I think a lot of people will, a very common time to get sick in college is, you start feeling it on like a Sunday or a Monday after you out on a Friday or a Saturday. Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I was out with a lot of people. Like there was a lot of germs being collected. But like quite simply, like you probably just didn't get good sleep that night that you were out. And then your body didn't have as strong of an immune response. And then you got sick. Yeah, I mean, it could be due to germs as well, obviously. But I would put money on it. It's usually just the fact that you didn't get a lot of sleep.
Yeah, if you want to like ruin your sleep in any way, like if your goal is to ruin your sleep, like drink alcohol. Literally, that is the worst thing. Like when we talk about body temperature, heart rate variability, alcohol negatively affects all of them, like to the greatest extent. And then we talk about recovering of muscles and tendons. It's in, what do you call it? What do you call when something has a lot of estrogen?
A woman? I'm going to have to cut that
out. Something that has a lot of, alcohol has a lot of, it makes your body have like an estrogen response to things. And testosterone is one of those hormones that helps with tissue repair. So it's literally the worst thing for you. And I'm not just saying that from a perspective of like, alcohol is bad for you because, you can get addicted to it. It's like, no, it's literally, like, if you want to ruin your sleep and you want like one substance, like drink alcohol.
Yeah. Also, when we tend to drink, we tend to not hydrate. And so usually you're on a constant state of dehydration when you drink. And that just also further ruins your sleep and your recovery and your immune response. So going back to what you said, love drinking on occasion. But, if you're doing it every day or you're drinking a lot, expect to get really shitty sleep and feel really shitty as well.
Yeah. Same thing goes with marijuana. It's kind of inconclusive on like how it necessarily affects sleep. And the reason why there isn't like a lot of studies with marijuana is because on a federal level, it's still legal. So like, they don't want to give a lot of grants or scholarship money for people to do research on marijuana. So it's like, it sucks because like we have nothing to base it off of. Like we don't have like if you don't know research, basically like grants are a big reason for how people conduct research. And so like when you can't get that, especially from federal level, it's really hard. Especially like public schools who do a lot of like John Hopkins, Harvard School of Medicine, like those big schools who do research on this topics, like they can't get the money for it. Mm-hmm. But I know like for sure, like marijuana or THC specifically, like in a high dosage is just like another way just to ruin your sleep. Even if like you feel like relaxed and whatnot, you're still like getting you might be getting the quantity of sleep, but you're not getting as good quality of sleep. And again, it goes back to like the sensation doesn't always equal stimulation. Just because you feel like you're tired doesn't mean you necessarily are having great sleep.
Yeah. Something I've been diving just a little bit into in that front is like the metric of oversleep as well. I saw somewhere that like after consuming cannabis, like the time that you are asleep increases. And just as we've been talking about, undersleep is a real thing. Oversleep is also a real thing. I like to think about it as like a car, for those of you who know how to drive stick. Like if you are trying to like, if you shift like too late, you're like bogged down. And so that's kind of how I think about like oversleep. Like if you sleep like too much of a metric, then your body like can't get going throughout the day. And you have very similar effects to undersleeping. but instead of your body like being like super stressed out because it's having to like recover while you're awake, which is just bad at doing, kind of the opposite happens, and it never really goes through those modalities. And so it's like a kind of a lethargic state for your entire body from oversleep. And I've been diving into that a little bit, but I don't know if you've heard anything in that department.
Not necessarily on that level, but I remember when I had like this sleep app. I told you, like, I've tried everything. I tried this sleep app, and it was like you actually talk to an actual doctor, and basically like their philosophy in helping me like get better sleep. One of my problems was just I'd wake up in the middle of the night multiple times, and so one of the things they said was like maybe you're trying to sleep for too long, more than what your body needs. So they actually, instead of increasing the sleep quantity, they wanted to increase the sleep quality first. So I go to sleep at a later time than I was originally going to accumulate like a better quality sleep. So it was kind of interesting. Like it kind of made sense to me. Like we're gonna lower the quantity, have better quality, and then slowly try to like increase the quantity. And it makes sense. So like sometimes I think to myself, like, am I trying too hard to sleep too long? But then like when I wake up at 1:40 in the morning, it's like, no, like, I'm not. But yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never actually really thought about that, but I think that makes sense to me. It's like you might be sleeping for a long time, but if 50+% is light sleep, like you could probably decrease the quantity a little bit, and then the quality will increase.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I need to look into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, oversleep is definitely a thing. Again, like ideally, you have about within an hour of varying times you go to sleep and wake up. I remember one of our old strength coach recommended for me, like if I'm waking up for 6 a.m. weights, like try to wake up on the non-weights day no longer than 1 hour after what I would on the weights day. So if I was waking up at 6, I'd try to wake up at 7 the next day. Because again, quality is just as important as quantity. And if I'm varying those times, it's like I could be just, nailing myself on the hand a little more.
Yeah. And that's what I was hitting at a little bit earlier. Like just as we want to go to bed at similar times, we also want to be trying to wake up at similar times. Because when your body thinks it's going to be up, it'll adjust on what the stages of your sleep and how it's conducting things.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like we should end it with this. Do you want to talk about our research study idea that we had and why we thought?
I think that'd be a great way to end this.
You want to start it?
Sure. This is obviously a subject that me and Anthony are pretty passionate about. We're big fans of our whoops. I love just looking into the sleep data, even during times in my life where I'm not like really trying to get my best performance. I love just seeing like what affected my sleep the night before. And we were curious that as an athletic level and in response to stresses. So we'll hopefully soon be conducting a study about athlete readiness on the road versus at home for competitions. And it's going to take into account the length of their sleep and then also some other like psychological and self-reported readiness scale questionnaires that'll hopefully tell us differences between home matches and away matches and like what really changes how you perform.
Yeah, and I guess like initially we were looking to get money or a grant for whoops to purchase for a team so that we can actually look objectively at what's happening, again, to those metrics we've talked about earlier, like HRV, heart rate, body temperature, to see how those metrics change at home versus on the road, right? Because our hypothesis, and it's been, it's been shown in research too, that on the road there's more stress than there is at home. Like you're sleeping in another bed, you're eating different food, you're somewhere different, you're on a bus for 4 hours, you're playing at a different field, you're just in a whole different environment. And I like to think about it even like a physiological way, like this is a functional anatomy thing, but the external environment dictates the internal demand. I think it's the same thing. Like I thought about this just before you came, because in motor learning we talk about performance operating variables. Well, I think of like recovery operating variables too. Like variables that change in your environment that are going to change how you perform different things. So just how like variables affect your performance, there's also variables that affect your readiness and recovery. And so you just have you just have way more stress on the road. Again, like like we've all had the uncomfy sheets at a hotel room and crappy food and
cramps from sitting on a bus.
Yeah, and the Wi-Fi doesn't work.
Yeah.
And you get yelled at, and sometimes even like not as much at our level, but then you have time zone changes and you have jet lag. Like those are all big stressors. Again, your body doesn't know the difference between good and bad stress. It just knows it's stress. So when you're doing more than you're usually used to, especially on the road, it can affect that. So that our hypothesis was, again, that you'd have more stress on the road, and so you'd have less readiness on the road. Now, obviously, we weren't able to get that research grant or get money for it, so we're doing it subjectively now with surveys, which is also, it's not a bad thing. It's also good, and if we have the opportunity later, then we could compare the objective and subjective things. But yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, I think it's something that, there's been the Whoop has kind of done it themselves with NBA basketball players, but I think it's very different for college athletes who have to deal with homework and away from their families and financial stuff. It's just a lot more different. But at the end of the day, like I've heard people say, like, oh, but isn't that common knowledge? But yeah, it is to us, but it'd be nice to be able to show it and have people who might not understand what it means. Even like some people are simply as sport coaches or strength and conditioning coaches or athletic trainers understand that there's way more stress on the road. So we might actually have to add more recovery to help with more stress.
Yeah.
We might need to, this is hypothetical, we might need to leave early for the trip so that we can get more sleep. We might need to give them more food. We might need to lessen the practice time to accommodate for the more stress on the road.
Yeah, I agree. And additionally, like, even though it might be common sense, like, we're going to have some smaller, more like specific metrics kind of like coded within our questionnaires. Mm-hmm. And so after that, hopefully we'll be able to make some more like causality claims, or correlation claims, I should say, between like what is really affecting our recovery. Because maybe we'll find it's nutrition rather than sleep, or it's stress of, homework, or, it's hard to do homework on a bus. Maybe you have to get to the hotel room and then finish homework assignment really fast. And, maybe the stress from school is affecting your performance, or maybe it is sleep. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of distinguish from all those possibilities. It should be fun.
Yeah. I think, is that a wrap for us on that?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of information that we just poured out there. I don't know what the final time was on here. It looks like an hour and 2 minutes. Yeah. So doubled the first episode.
I'd say if anyone is interested in submitting any topics for us to talk about, or just anything in general, any questions, any comments, it's only our second episode, so we're definitely more than welcome to hear feedback.
Yeah. Completely unrelated note, I saw a post the other day. It's like 20% of podcasts never even pass the first episode, and then it just gets like higher and higher. So episode 2 down, the goal, it's 99% of podcasts don't pass episode 21.
Dude,
so
we're getting
episode
to
21
we're getting
coming soon. All right, thanks for listening, everyone.
See ya.